Good morning, students. Today we'll continue from what we had left in the previous class. So today the topic is wildlife. In the previous classes, we had discussed how forests are an important resource. Today we will discuss how wildlife is an important natural resource. I hope you all agree that wildlife is a natural resource because we get it from nature. Now, talking about wildlife, we may think that wildlife is not very important to us, but remember, all animals are a part of our food chain and food web. If one animal is disturbed in the chain, if one animal is disturbed in the food web, the entire chain may get disturbed. So, wildlife is also a very important resource. We will not know it until we lose something as an animal. If you let us take an example, if one or two animals are lost on this planet, wildlife will be severely affected. In fact, human life will also be affected. So first of all, we will talk about the importance of wildlife. When you talk about the importance of wildlife is basically, it helps us to maintain biodiversity. We have already discussed that biodiversity means variety of life forms, variety of living organisms, number of living organisms that we have on this planet. So wildlife helps us to preserve the biodiversity. The second point I have already discussed with you just now, that in order to maintain the food chain and the food web, the wildlife is very important. So survivability of wildlife, the wild animals should be present if we want to preserve human life, if we want to save our food chain, if you want to save your food web from getting destroyed. The third factor is we get many important useful products from wildlife. They are food, different types of food in terms of meat, leather from various animals, medicines from various animals. Many animals have the property of giving us medicines. Bones of various animals can be used as for making various items. Honey from the honeybees. So these are some of the useful products that we get from animals or wildlife. So definitely wildlife is an important natural resource. Now if you want to conserve the wildlife, you have to follow the following 4 points that is mentioned in the slide. First is preserving the natural habitat of animals. Habitat, I have already discussed with you previously. Habitat means home of living organisms. So for wild animals, the habitat is the forest. So if you want to preserve wildlife, you have to preserve the forest. So first of all, in order to conserve wildlife, we need to preserve the forest, we need to preserve the habitat of these wild animals. The second point is banning poaching of animals. Remember, poaching is an illegal activity which is done in order to kill the animals and get useful products from them. Like say we have the very famous one-horned rhino as the pride of Assam. So from that horn, many useful products are made, various ornaments, various jewelries are made. From the tusks of elephants, various items can be prepared, various decorative items can be prepared which are sold at a very high value in the international market. So we must ban poaching of animals, illegal killing, illegal trade of animals should be completely banned. The third is protecting the endangered species of animals. Endangered are those species which are on the verge of extinction, which may disappear in the future. They are in a less number now and may disappear in the future. So we have to preserve them now only. If you preserve them at a later stage, you might not be in a position to preserve them. So endangered species, those species are less in number and are on the verge of extinction, they must be preserved at any cost. If they are not there, we will lose many wild animals which may be a part of the food chain and food web, or they may give us various useful products. Lastly, if you want to conserve wildlife, we need to conserve them at the national parks, at the wildlife sanctuaries, at the biosphere reserves. As you know, these are the three areas: the national parks, the biosphere reserve, and the wildlife sanctuaries. These three are the protective areas in which you can keep an animal, keep a wild animal, and you can look after them, or the government may look after it with certain norms and measures. Certain rules are there, you have to follow those rules, but you can keep those wild animals at such places, so they will be preserved at those places. Now, in the next slide, we will talk about participation of people in the conservation of forests and wildlife. So first example we will study today. The first example is of local people of Rajasthan. There are a few tribes in Rajasthan which is called as the Bishnoi tribe. You can see the slide here, and the slide will describe you all. The tribe is called as the Bishnoi tribe, and the area in which the Bishnoi tribe used to live, that area is a few kilometers away from Jaipur. You must have heard the name Jaipur, the capital of Rajasthan. The place is called as Jodhpur, a few kilometers away from Jaipur. So nearby Jodhpur, a few people of the Bishnoi tribe used to live, and nearby those areas there was a famous tree called as the Khejari tree. It is given in the slide. The Khejari tree, if you see the importance of the Khejari tree, the Bishnoi community thought the Khejari tree to be a traditional tree, to be a religious tree. They did not want to lose the Khejari tree at any cost because they worshipped the tree. Now, an incident happened due to which some outsiders came to the village or came near those areas, and they wanted to cut off the Khejari trees in order to clear a particular area. Now what happened when the outsiders came to clear that particular area of the Khejari trees? The Bishnoi women, they revolted. They were not supporting the outsiders who were ready to come and cut the trees. So they said that this is our God, we worship them, you cannot cut those trees at any cost. So one of their leaders was called as Amrita Devi. It was in the year 1731 that Amrita Devi Bishnoi, she was the leader of that community, because this was more popular among the women, because women are the people who worship the tree every day maybe. So Amrita Devi, along with 363 other, they revolted against the cutting of the Khejari trees in Rajasthan. All the 363, they were the Khejari women who did not want the cutting down of trees. And so all of them, along with Amrita Devi and 363 Bishnoi women, they gave up their lives only to conserve the Khejari tree. So as we were in the topic that what is the participation of the local people in the conservation of forests. So this is an example, a live example, wherein a community had come forward and they prevented the cutting down of this tree, the khejari tree. So they were very much involved in protection of wildlife and forests. Due to this, the Indian government every year they give the Amrita Devi National Award for Wildlife Conservation. You can see in the slide here, Amrita Devi Bishnoi National Award for Wildlife Conservation. Every year it is given to some people or a few people who do good work in the conservation of forests. So this is one very important example of how local people participated in the conservation of forest. Important for the exam also. Next we'll go to one more example. That incident is called as the Chipko Andolan. You must have heard about it. Chipko means to hug the trees. Chipko means to stick or hug the trees. In English it is called as the hug the tree movement. So in Hindi it is more popular, called as the Chipko Movement. Now this was in the year 1970s, not very far away from today. 1970s, around 50 years, say around 50 years back. So it was, this incident took place in the Garhwal region of Uttarakhand. In Uttarakhand there is a tribe called as the Garhwalis, and it was in the foothills of Himalayas that this incident took place. Again, the incident is almost similar to the Bishnoi community. I will explain you. What happened, there is a village called as the Reni village, R-E-N-I. You can see in the slide. There were a group of farmer wives. They were a group of farmers' wives who did not want the cutting down of trees of their area. But what happened in the Garhwal area of Uttarakhand, few contractors, they wanted to empty a particular area again, and to empty that particular area they wanted to cut down the trees of that area so that that area is open and they want to establish some industry or the other. So the wives of the farmers, they revolted. They said, no, you cannot cut down the trees. So they hugged the trees like this. They said that first kill us, then you cut the tree. So when they hugged the tree, so the people of the contractor, they were quite surprised by their instant move. So due to their efforts, due to the efforts of the farmers' wives, the trees could not be cut by the contractors. And this movement became a very widespread movement in Uttarakhand. At many places this happened, that whenever you go to cut down a tree, people will hug the tree. They say, you cut, first kill us, then you cut down the tree. So which will not happen, as you know. So this movement was called as the Chipko Movement, and the contractor, the forest department contractor, could not cut down the trees, and people said that forest is our right. Forests are an important natural resource. That is our right. You cannot take away our right. So in that way, the cutting down of trees was avoided by these group of farmers' wives. So this is a very good example of how local people participated in the conservation of forests. This is the second example that I have discussed with you. The third example will be this one, this slide, wherein this incident took place in the state of West Bengal. It was in the Midnapur district of West Bengal. I have given everything in the slide. The forest range is called as the Arabari forest range. In the Arabari forest range, there was a forest officer called as A.K. Banerjee. When he came to that forest as the forest officer, when he was transferred as the forest officer of that forest range, what happened is he saw that the condition of the forest was very bad. As you know, from the forest the government gets some revenue, the government will also get some profit from the forest, but that forest was in a very bad condition, in a very pitiable condition. Now the special thing to note is, in that forest there was a very important resource called as the sal tree, SAL, sal tree. That tree, the logs of those tree were used in railway tracks, you must be remembering. If you have seen the old lines, railway lines, you can see that logs of wood were placed in the railway lines. So that tree was a very important resource. Nowadays logs of wood are not used. Now we use cemented tracks. But previously logs of wood were placed. So you can understand, if logs of wood were placed, they were very strong. And the sal tree had that much of strength. And the sal tree, like if you prepare furnitures from the sal tree, they were quite expensive and they were very, very strong. So the sal tree was a speciality of the Arabari forest range, but the condition was very bad, as I said, when A.K. Banerjee came as the forest officer to that area. Now, in order to protect the forest, in order to conserve the forest, what did A.K. Banerjee do? A.K. Banerjee was a very far-seeing forest officer. The meaning is, he could predict that how can he conserve the forest in the future. For that, what did he do is, he took the villagers and told the villagers that if you help me in afforestation means planting the trees again. If you help me in afforestation, I will help you to gather firewood, and whatever the forest earns in that year, I will give you some percentage of that too. So what happened? The villagers were now interested in plantation because they thought that we will get some money. Now see, you can see in the slide that he told the villagers that I will help you with food, I will help you with firewood, if you help me in afforestation or silviculture. There is a term here called as silviculture. Silviculture means plantation, again the plantation of more and more trees. So difference between afforestation and silviculture is, afforestation is planting of any tree, but silviculture is plantation of a particular type of tree. So when we talk about silviculture, so here it was silviculture of the sal forest, silviculture of the sal tree. So finally what happened, after the trees were grown, after the sal tree was planted, it was seen that the forest had a profit of 12.5 crores throughout, I think 2-3 years. 12.5 crores, huge amount. And that 12.5 crores, 25% of this 12.5 crores was distributed among the villagers. So you could understand that villagers participated in conservation of the forest. Villagers, with the help of the villagers, the forest was upgraded. The sal tree was revived. And finally the government also could get a lot of profit. 12.5 crores is a huge money. And from that 25% was given to the village community, was given to the villagers. So everybody was happy. Villagers participated and they got money in return. They got facilities of various things in return. In fact, we also heard that villagers were given, some of the villagers were given employment also in the forest department due to their participation in the forest activities. So this was a very good example where we can see that how people's participation could help us in the management of forests.